gathered here today to discuss and to explore the connection between the five values of Pancasila, Indonesia's state philosophy, and the 2021 UNESCO recommendation for the ethics of artificial intelligence. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us, and I do hope that our discussion and knowledge exchange may bring us all a fruitful outcome. Before we move on to the next session, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ashla Lubna, and I will be hosting our gathering today. It is a pleasure to meet all of you. We will formally open today's event by singing the Indonesia's national anthem together and followed by the hymn of Gajah Mada University. It is advised for all the participants and the guests to rise for their seats. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. For our next session, an opening remark from our Vice Rector of Gajah Mada University, Bapak Ignatius Susatyo Wijoyo, who is in charge of the research, business development, and cooperation of Gajah Mada University. Please welcome Bapak Ignatius Susatyo Wijoyo.
Silakan duduk Bu, silakan dilanjutkan Pak. Ya, selamat pagi, very good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Our distinguished guest, Miss Tunggal Kanbatan, Mbak Meida, our Dean, Philosophy Dean, Mbak Titi, Vice Dean, Saifa, and all of the in honor participant here. First, let me introduce my name. My name is Satyo. I'm becoming fast rector here almost 7 months. On behalf of Universitas Gajah Mada, I am honored to welcome you all to the launch of the report on AI ethics and Pancasila, a collaborative research project between our Faculty of Philosophy and UNESCO Jakarta. This study is timely and critical contribution to the global conversation and the ethical implication of the artificial intelligence. The collaboration between our esteemed faculty and UNESCO Jakarta exemplifies the importance of interdisciplinary research and international partnership. This joint effort has brought together experts from diverse fields and backgrounds, fostering an exchange of knowledge and ideas that enrich our collective understanding of the that can help us navigate the opportunities and challenges presented by emerging technologies. We believe that this study is a significant step forward in advancing our understanding of how AI can be developed and used in accordance with our national value as encapsulated in Pancasila. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all researchers who involved in this study for their dedication and hard work. I would also like to express my gratitude to our distinguished guests for their presence today and their continued support of our endeavors. I hope this launching event will serve as an occasion for meaningful discussion and fruitful exchanges, and that the insights shared here today will help shape our future of AI and ethics in Indonesia and beyond. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak Ignatius, for the very warm welcome. Our next session is the Writer's Talks, which will be moderated by Ms. Rona Utami. Please welcome Ms. Rona.
Okay, so good morning, good day, everyone. So, as mentioned by our beautiful MC here, Welcome to the launching of Artificial Intelligence in Indonesia, contextualizing the UNESCO recommendations on the ethics of AI within Pancasila. This event is also live streamed on YouTube, so maybe some of our friends couldn't join us in this room. They can actually go to the YouTube. And my name is Rona. I'm pretty sure that I think 90% of today's participants know me. So I will be moderating these writer talk sessions. Before we begin and before I invite all our speakers, there are actually a few of housekeeping notes here. So each presenter later in this session will have a total 15 to 20 minutes for their presentations, and after each presentations there will be time for 1 or 2 questions, and in the end of the presentations there will be a small survey for participants to share your thoughts about this event. Okay, so now let's welcome our speakers today. Ibu Siti Murtiningsih, please come with me. Ibu Undral Ganbatar, please come with me, and Ibu Meida Nento as well. And also Bapak Taufik Rahman, please. So the launch of this research report on AI ethics and Pancasila is a collaboration project between the Faculty of Philosophy, Universitas Gadjah Mada, and also UNESCO Jakarta office. I would like to introduce quickly our speakers today. Here we have writers and also editors for this research report. And of course, first I'd like to introduce Ibu Siti, who doesn't know her, while I was introducing myself that I think 90% of these participants in this room know me, but for Ibu Siti, I'm pretty sure that 99% of today's participants knows her very well. So Ibu Murti, Ibu Siti, or we call it sometimes Ibu Titi, is our Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy. She is also an expert on education, as she is now appointed as an educational counsel for special region of Yogyakarta. She published a lot of books, several articles in journals and medias focused on philosophy, education, AI, and some other important topics. Here we also have Ms. Undral Ganbatar, please. So it's really an honor to have you here with us in our faculty. Graduated from the Oxford University. Ms. Ganbatar now serves as a program specialist and head of social and human science program, UNESCO Asia Pacific Bureau for the Science, Jakarta in Indonesia. And also we have here Mbak Meida Nento, an associate project officer for social and human sciences. We collaborate a lot and we talk a lot with Mbak Meida. Thank you for your help and support. And also we have here Bapak Taufik. She is a new lecturer, and he is really expert on philosophy of mind, metaphysics, and many other important topics on philosophy. So, okay, so we are now begin directly to the report, especially. So, but first I'd like to invite Ms. Ganbatar to first deliver her talk on the UNESCO recommendations, especially on AI ethics. And I'm pretty sure that the slides will be showed after these sessions. I think Hukmi is already there for, thank you. Okay, so I'll give you around 10 to 15 minutes to deliver your talk about the UNESCO recommendations, especially on the AI ethics, and maybe a brief introductions, a little introductions to what the Faculty of Philosophy and UNESCO office in Jakarta work together. Please, Ms. Kanbatar.
Very much, Ms. Rona. Selamat pagi. Good morning to all. Thank you. Live stream. It's very much appreciated, and it's very nice to see you all. So I will divide my talk into broadly 3 parts, and I will not take up most of the session because I think the most important part is to listen to Professor Titi and listen to her intervention on how this report came to take shape, because it was a very collaborative process, but it's very uniquely embedded in the Indonesian context. So I'm really looking forward to that part myself. So just to give context for what UNESCO does, UNESCO, of course, is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And why is it that we are working on AI? Since it was founded after World War II, we have a very long history of pondering the ethical questions of the scientific and technological disruption of that time, whatever that time frame may have been. So we have a very strong bioethics program and ethics of science and technology program. And as a United Nations body, we've produced normative guidelines, standard-setting instruments on these very topical and timely issues. So it was with this background that in 2019, 4 years ago, that we received a mandate from our member states to develop a global guideline on ethical norms and principles for artificial intelligence. So it was something that came to us from our 193 member states. The process of developing this recommendation was very intense. We had expert writers from all of the different regions in the world that were represented. We had stakeholder consultations in all of the regions in the world that we operate, taking into account feedback from many different stakeholder groups. So it was a dimensional approach, very diverse and inclusive as we could make it, in the understanding that ethics of science and technology, particularly disruptive technologies like AI, is not just one person's business, it's everybody's business. You might not feel that you are a developer of technological tools. It may seem something that is not relevant to you, but in this day and age, you are a consumer, and it does affect you in everyday life. So everyone does get to have a say in how these tools are developed and deployed, and the impact that it has on the society that we live in. So this is the normative framework which guides our work. We are a regional office. We work in Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Timor-Leste. And me and my colleague, Meda, we have been working on implementing this recommendation document, which was adopted by 193 member states, including Indonesia, in the local context. So what does that look like? It looks like policy support, working with national agencies, national entities working in AI policy. We provide capacity building tools to stakeholders. For example, we have an AI readiness assessment to measure the state of AI in different contexts. We have an ethical impact assessment tool, which looks at the ethical impacts of AI technologies across its life cycle. We produce MOOCs and other content that are there to serve our beneficiaries and our stakeholders. And finally, the third element is to engage in socialization and awareness raising of sort of these different dimensions. raised by sciences and technology. So it's sort of with this grounding that we decided to reach out to University of Gadjah Mada to work together on the state of AI ethics in Indonesia and how it is grounded in the national context, because these are not, they shouldn't be seen as values that are imported or coming from other contexts. They are grounded in a very national understanding, because in Pancasila, all of these values are reflected. The need for unity and diversity, of transparency, human rights, all of these concepts are already embedded in the national context. So we wanted to have an investigation of how does this global recommendation, which was developed with the interventions of 100 member states, how does it look like in the national context, and how does it tie within the national philosophy of Indonesia? So we wanted to have this investigation, and I think this report is something that is very much welcomed by UNESCO, and we really thank our partners at the Faculty of Philosophy, particularly our author, Professor Siti, for her leadership of this project, and of course of her team members, Ms. Rona, and all of the members of the faculty department. So on the screen, while I'm talking, these are just some of the slides that I usually share when I engage with students and other stakeholders of AI. These are just some of the values and principles that are reflected in our global recommendation, and I think you can agree this is something that's quite universal and something that everyone can agree to. Quite importantly, and you can see number 3, ensuring diversity and inclusiveness in the process of developing and deploying AI technologies. Under principles, of course, there are, again, universal values that we can all agree to. The concept of proportionality and to do no harm, the need for human oversight over AI technologies. It should always be to the service of human beings and society. Fairness and non-discrimination, safeguarding and harm, concept of no harm, transparency, explainability of AI systems. So these are some of the principles that we have identified in the recommendation. So maybe if I go over to the next slide. And these are some of the concrete policy areas that we think the recommendation can feed into. I'll highlight a couple because I think it might be interesting. I will highlight the cultural sector because when we think about the impact that AI technology can have, usually it's in the context of economic impact. How can we grow the economy? What are the benefits of AI to the digital economy, or other aspects of economic prosperity? And that's very important. But it also has impact in other sectors as well. For example, in the creative economy, in the creative sector where artists and creative professionals are engaged, what sort of disruptions and does AI tools bring, and how does that impact the human beings that work in those sectors? So actually, in this afternoon, we are going to go on and have our second event in Jogja, which is looking at AI disruptions in the creative economy. And I hope some of the participants here can also join that event as well. Because as UNESCO, we have a very wide mandate. We have the education, culture, and sciences mandate. So we want to use this to look at the power of technologies like AI in not just one dimension, but in many other dimensions within our mandate. So I want to highlight some of these policy areas that the recommendation includes. Maybe if we can go on to the next slide. And as I mentioned earlier in my talk, I said we are developing various tools to help with the implementation of this recommendation. I mentioned the readiness assessment methodology, which is being deployed to countries in the region. My colleague Maida and I are working with stakeholders on this. I mentioned the ethical impact assessment, but we also have under UNESCO other tools such as the AI Experts Without Borders, which is a roster of experts that can be deployed in national context to help with capacity building. In the previous slide, there was a section on gender equity within the space of science and technology. So we have a Women for Ethical AI network, which is dedicated to looking at the need for gender equity and parity within those who are engaged in the STEM area. And of course, we had a global platform to discuss issues at the high level, which is the Global Forum on Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. And we had our inaugural forum last year in Prague in December 22, at which Indonesia was represented, and the Indonesian delegate presented the national strategy on AI of Indonesia. And we, again, were very happy to have this engagement from Indonesia, to be able to share the experiences at the high level stage. And finally, I will mention the Observatory of AI Ethics, which gathers different case studies of the use of AI and the ethical challenges that its implementation brings. So I think I will end my presentation here because, again, as I mentioned, I want to give more time to Professor Titi to give her own intervention on this report. So if there are any questions related to UNESCO's work, and our activities on AI and ethics of science and technology, I will answer some questions later together with my colleague. But for now, I would like to yield the floor back to the moderator and to Professor Siti.
Thank you very much, Ms. Undral Ganbata. So it is actually clear that we have just seen the recommendations of the AI ethics as a global instrument that actually encourage and formulations and implementations of international and also national policies and regulatory framework to ensure that these emerging technologies benefits humanity as a whole. Okay, so now we are going to hear Ibu Siti will deliver her talks about AI ethics and Pancasila. Yes, please, Ibu Siti.
Yeah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Rona. Good morning, everyone. Sehat semuanya? Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Nama Budaya, salam kebajikan. Yang terhormat Pak WR yang telah berkenan untuk rawuh membersamai kita semua di acara pagi hari ini yang insya Allah semuanya dalam keadaan sehat. Dan terutama good morning Undral and Mbak Maida, selamat pagi, sehat hari ini ya, Alhamdulillah. Dan di sebelah kiri saya ada dosen muda kita, Mas Taufikur Rahman, yang saya kira teman-teman sudah sangat kenal semua gitu. Nah, kolaborasi yang saya kira kita lakukan beberapa saat 1 tahun terakhir ini bersama UNESCO menghasilkan beberapa hal yang hari ini alhamdulillah sudah bisa terselesaikan dan insya Allah setelah ini bisa kita launching dan menjadi panduan yang bisa diadopsi oleh semua elemen dan lapisan. Dan khususan terima kasih juga telah hadir di ruang ini bersama kita semua Bapak Ibu dosen yang terlihat ada Ibu Kaprodi, Dr. Sonyoruri Budiani Trisakti, good morning, Bu Uyi, dan ada tim pasukan muda ini, ada Mas Rangga, Mas Hukmi, ada Mas Odi dan juga ada Mbak Soim dan Mbak Dela. Ini adalah masa depan filsafat besok gitu. Nah, mohon izin untuk bisa menyambung dari apa yang sudah disampaikan oleh Undral berkenaan dengan apa yang telah dihasilkan secara bersama hasil dari sinergi kolaborasi antara Fakultas Filsafat dengan UNESCO. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you all today at this event. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and express my gratitude for your presence here. I also thank UNESCO Jakarta, Ms. Undrel Ganbatar, and so Ms. Meidaninto for trusting us to collaborate for the project contextualizing UNESCO's recommendation on the ethic of AI with Pancasila. This is very valuable experience, I think, for us, and I'm very happy to work with UNESCO team. I'm also very pleased that the final report of this consultancy has finally been released today at the Faculty of Philosophy UGM. In this short opportunity, let us convey some important points from the result of our study on the ethic of AI in Indonesia. So, you can see here, the fourth industrial revolution marked a new model of the relationship between human and technological devices. Previously, the relationship between humans and technological devices was a subject-to-object relationship, with humans as subject and technological devices as object that humans use for specific purposes. However, due to the birth of many technologies based on artificial intelligence, the relationship turned into a subject-to-subject relationship. When dealing with this AI-based technology, humans don't look like they are dealing with machines, but look like they are dealing with other humans who can also display intelligent behavior by giving appropriate responses. Therefore, we need to build a new framework regarding the ethics of developing and using AI-based technology. Before discussing AI ethics in Indonesia, further, I will briefly explain what AI ethic is. Ethic is a branch of philosophy that addresses the question of what is good and bad, or what is morally right and wrong. Ethics of AI is a specific branch of ethics that deals with the question of what is good and bad, or what is morally right and wrong in the development and use of AI-based technologies. This specific branch of ethics emerged is response to concern about the development of AI-based technologies, which, while being beneficial, can also produce undesirable results. What would happen if we had no AI ethic at all? At least three bad things will happen. The first, AI will be developed only with business consideration, namely to get the most profit with the least cost. In this context, security and safety aspects are often overlooked. Second, if AI is only developed with business in mind, it will be difficult for people to accept and trust AI. And the third, without ethical guidelines, AI can lead us to a technological dystopia, such as the ones depicted by some science fiction. Therefore, ethics of AI is needed to regulate the development and use of AI so that we avoid those three problems. In global context, UNESCO has developed recommendation on the ethic of AI that the member states can adopt. Ethic of AI in Indonesia, philosophically speaking, every ethical principle has some philosophical assumption on which it relies. Without a philosophical basis, ethical principle would be arbitrary, non-principle instruction. The formulation of ethic of AI in Indonesia also needs to be based on certain philosophical assumption. Indonesia has Pancasila, which can be explored in such a way that it can become the philosophical basis for the ethics of AI. This paper proposed a system of ethics of AI consisting of 3 dimensions, namely in the philosophical, ethical, and technical dimension. And the first, Pancasila as a philosophical basis. Apart from being the basis of the state, Pancasila can also be the philosophical basis for the ethical principle of the development and use of AI in Indonesia. As its name indicates, Pancasila have 5 principles. We know that the one believe in the divine, and the second, just and civilized humanity. The third, the unity of Indonesian, and the fourth, democracy guided by the inner wisdom in the unanimity rising out of deliberation among representative, and the fifth, social justice for all Indonesian people. Each of the 5 principles can be abstracted into ideas about religiosity, humanity, unity, democracy, and social justice. Let's talk about religiosity. Now, the idea of religiosity contained in this first principle is not associated with a particular religion. This shows that the religiosity referred to by this principle is not formal religiosity, which is usually marked by rituals in a particular religion. The religiosity referred to by the first principle is universal religiosity that transcends any religion institution. In this context, I think religiosity can be understood as spirituality, which is usually distinguished from religion. The essence of religiosity or spirituality is the recognition that there is a supernatural entity that transcends humans and suggests that humans are equal and connected to other creatures and in the universe. And the second, about humanity. The second principle proposes a different conception of humanity from, of course, Western humanism, which emphasizes individual freedom and autonomy, but ignore the issue of justice. By adding the adjective just and civilized to humanity, the second principle wants to anchor the conception of humanity to the principle of justice and civility. And the third, about unity. The third principle is a response to the social reality of Indonesian society, which is very diverse in terms of religion, ethnicity, culture, and language. This third principle wants such a diversity to be unified so that we can become one nation. However, the idea of unity in the third principle is not a totalitarian model of unity. The diverse social groups need not be the same to be a part of the nation. They are still allowed to be themselves and include in the bond of unity of a nation because of a sense of brotherhood. Therefore, the Indonesian nation has the motto Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means unity in diversity. And this fourth principle about democracy proposes a conception of democracy guided by wisdom. This means that every important decision must be made with the participants of the people. However, adequate democratic participation must be combined by wisdom and knowledge. Therefore, this democratic aspect of Pancasila also require the democratization of knowledge and skill for everyone. All knowledge should be accessible to everyone, of course. And this fifth principle states that the goal of the Indonesian state is to create social justice for all Indonesian people. This is not utopia that will materialize sometimes in the future. It's the actual function of the state to ensure that no one is treated unfairly. And from the 5 principles of Pancasila, each of which contains a philosophical idea, we can derive 5 ethical principles. The first, equality of all beings, and the second, respect for human dignity and right, and the third, brotherhood among citizens, and the fourth, democratic participation, and the fifth, fairness and inclusiveness. The first principle, equality of all beings. This principle requires that AI is not developed and used as a tool to master and dominate other beings in the universe. This principle emphasizes that instead of exploiting other living things and their environment, AI-based technology should be developed and used to maintain and enrich biodiversity in nature. The reason is that all living things have the same right to life. And second, about respect for human dignity and right. This principle suggests that the development and use of AI-based technology must not threaten human dignity, right, and freedom. AI should instead be developed and used to improve the quality of human life. Therefore, human control and determination must exist in every life cycle of AI. And technically, this principle can be translated into the concept of human-centered AI. And next principle, brotherhood among citizens. This principle emphasizes that the development and use of AI-based technology in Indonesia must be able to foster a sense of brotherhood among fellow citizens. Indonesia, we know, is a large nation consisting of various ethnicities, religious, cultures, and languages. Of course, it's not easy to reconcile these differences. AI-based technologies should be able to cultivate an imagination of unity and a sense of brotherhood among fellow citizens, regardless of the geographical distance that stretches between them. And the next principle, democratic participation. This principle can be understood in two senses. The first, this principle mandates that the development and use of AI should involve the participants of as many and diverse people as possible. And second, this principle mandates that the use of AI can strengthen democracy. This means that instead of evoking the spirit of authoritarianism that various surveillance technologies can facilitate, AI must further strengthen people's participation in public policy formulation and guarantee freedom of speech. And the next principle, fairness and inclusiveness. This principle ensures that no one is left behind in the advancement of this technology. The benefit of this AI-based technology should be enjoyed by everyone. Furthermore, this AI-based technology must be designed to be able to reduce socioeconomic inequality between citizens and prevent discriminatory acts. And the next principle about technical, the 5 ethical principles above are still, we know, abstract. We need to translate it into more concrete technical guidelines. Some of the technical guidelines that will be mentioned here already exist in several documents that have been made regarding the ethic of AI. However, I will show that the following technical guidelines can be logically deduced from the above ethical principle. Human control and determination. This is the main principle of human-centered AI. The human-centered AI aims not only to design AI that benefit humans, but also AI that can improve human capabilities. Therefore, instead of replacing the human role, AI must be designed by balancing aspects of its automation and aspect of human control over it. And thus, the use of AI technology still place humans as controllers and even encourage humans to further explore their creative capabilities. This instruction can be deduced logically from P2. The imperative to respect human dignity, right, and freedom require that humans have control and determination over everything related to their life. The next about data privacy and security. AI system must be able to protect our data from being misused or leaked. This guidance is also logically implied by P2. Without ensuring data privacy and security, we will not be able to fulfill the ethical imperative to respect human dignity, right, and freedom. This assumes that privacy is part of human right. Violating privacy means violating human right, of course. The next, about safety and robustness. The AI-based technology that will be used must be ensured that it is safe and technically robust. All potential threats to human and the environment must be detected and anticipated as early as possible. These technical guidelines, apart from being required by P2, is also required by P1. The imperative to respect human dignity, right, and freedoms, as well as the principle of equality of being in the universe requires that the AI system that we will use is harmless to humans and the surrounding environment, which is the habitat of other living things. And the next about accessibility and diversity. This technical guidelines is implied by P5, which mandate that no one is left behind in the development of AI-based technology. The design of AI technology that is accessible to everyone, and data set that represent as diverse groups as possible to avoid gender, race, and ability bias are the embodiment of the principle of justice and inclusiveness. Without a design and data set prepared to be accessible and diverse, P5 is difficult to implement. In addition, this technical guideline is also ensured by P3 and P4, each of which mandate that AI technology can increase social cohesion and a sense of brotherhood among fellow citizens and encourage democratic participation. Without realizing accessibility and diversity in AI design and database, it's not possible to fulfill P3 and P4. The sense of brotherhood among fellow citizens, for example, will not increase if the AI system adopted lead to social segregation or are only accessible to privileged people. And the next about transparency and explainability. This transparency rule is related to two aspects, namely the transparency of the EA system itself and the transparency of the organization or companies that use it. Transparency regarding a system is commonly referred to as the principle of explainability, which states that the input, output, and operation of the EA system must be clearly explained to its end users. This technical guide is a requirement of P2 and P4. The ethical imperative to respect human dignity, rights, and freedom require that AI system be transparent so the end user are not exposed to the risk of fraud or loss due to ignorance. Only by being equipped with adequate information about how an AI system works, everyone can participate democratically in every life cycle of AI. The next about sustainability and adaptability. AI-based technology adopted by an institution, whether public or private, must be able to support the achievement of sustainable development goals and be able to adapt to various environmental, social, cultural, and economic circumstances. An important issue to emphasize regarding these technical guidelines is environmental damage. Instead of destroying the environment, AI-based technology must be able to enable environmentally friendly socio-economic activities. This technical guide is required by P1. Recognizing the equality of all creators means preserving the ecosystem that alone that to live well. Therefore, every effort to develop and adopt AI-based technology must consider its sustainability and adaptability aspect. And the next, finally, recommendations. The first recommendation, codifying the ethical principle above and their technical guidelines into a law that specifically and comprehensively regulate the development and use of AI in Indonesia by being codified into law, ethical principle about AI are not just abstract principles that are easily ignored. They will have coercive power as the rule of law in general. And the second recommendation, planning a good public communication strategy. Before being codified into law, the above principle need to be communicated to the public so that when they become law, they are easier to accept and apply. And the third recommendation, building an ethic committee. The task of this institution is to ensure that certain technologies meet the ethical principles above. Therefore, any AI-based technology that will be used in Indonesia must pass an assessment from this committee. And the next comparative study, apart from trying to contextualize UNESCO's recommendation on the ethic of AI with Pancasila, we also conducted a comparative study of the national AI strategies of several countries in CA. We used 3 points of comparison. The one, strategic approach, ethical concern, and priority sectors to assess the strategic of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And the result of comparison, our comparative study arrived at some conclusion. What is that conclusion? And the first, all the countries compared are committed to investing in AI R&D, but no one is concerned with how best AI R&D should be done. And the second result, of the 5 countries compared, only Singapore and Malaysia are anticipating the transformation of the job market due to the increasing application of AI. And the result of comparison, the third, Indonesia and Thailand do not include international cooperation as part of their strategic plans for developing and implementation AI. And the fourth, Vietnam and Thailand didn't specify which ethical principle would be adopted in the development of AI in their respective regions. Vietnam doesn't even mention ethical issues at all. And the fifth, Singapore doesn't consider robustness and safety as part of its AI system development principle. And the sixth, the notion of human-centered AI is only partially understood and implemented by Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I think finish paparan ini. Mudah-mudahan kita bisa diskusi di sesi berikutnya. Thank you, Rona. Time.
Terima kasih Bu Murti. Tadi sudah kita dengarkan bersama beberapa poin ya, yang menurut saya sangat komprehensif dengan menggunakan 3 dimensi, khususnya dari philosophical perspective, ethical perspective, to the technical perspectives. And we can also see that in this research report, we use Pancasila as a paradigm of science and technology, and its ethical values, we know that it must be always used as the main guidelines in science and technological development in the country. So I think we have 20 times, maybe it is a Q&A sessions. Please, everyone who would like to ask something about this report, or something about AI ethics and Pancasila, bisa bertanya. Kalau teman-teman di sini ada yang ingin ditanyakan, bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia. atau langsung dalam bahasa Inggris. Bahasa Arab juga boleh nanti diterjemahkan sama Mas Taufik. Okay, so please everyone. Some questions? Masih malu? Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I think Bu Siti, this is, comparing to, for example, law. In law, we know that there is a mechanism, law enforcement mechanisms, while in ethics, it lacks of these kinds of mechanism. What do you think about these ethical recommendations? Which is, sometimes ethics can be recognized as something really lacks of mechanism. It's totally different with, for example, law disciplines. Bu Titi.
Wow, well, pertanyaan yang sulit. That's the crucial question, Rona. A law that has a coercive enforcement mechanism. We are aware of that issue. We have demonstrated in our study that ethics alone is not enough to drive AI to developing a better future of humanity. Some experts even said that ethics is often overlooked in some cases, especially by some engineers, maybe, who are not used to care about it. Therefore, we recommend that this normative principle to be codified into a law or at least be backed up by a firm and specific regulatory framework. For instances, the government established an ethics committee responsible for assessing the advisability of an AI-based technology, and also make a regulation stating that every AI-based technology which will be adopted and used must gain an ethical clearance for the committee, I think. Maybe Mas Taufik mau nambahin? Say something for us.
Okay, thank you. I think that's one problem of ethics that has no systematic, coercive, and that has no enforcement mechanism like a law. Everyone who broke an ethics cannot be punished, cannot get punished by government, by police, like someone who broke law. So we are aware of the problem. So we recommend that the government should codify the ethical principle about AI ethics, about AI into law, or at least it should be backed up by law. So, for instance, Ms. Murthy said that the government should establish an ethics committee for the development and use of AI. So, every AI-based technology that will be adopted or used or deployed in this country should gain ethical clearance for the ethics committee. It's like food that has to get clearance from BPOM. I think it's the same cases with the food in Indonesia. I think, yes, and we have to deliver this recommendation to maybe BNPT, BNPT, Badan Pengkajian dan Penerapan Teknologi.
Something to add, maybe? Undral, please.
I can add something in context of UNESCO's role. We developed this normative instrument at the recommendation level. So, of course, we have three different types of international instrument at our disposal: a declaration type of document or a convention type of document or a recommendation. So what this means, that it's a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, is that it's entirely voluntary for our member states to adopt. And one of the reasons that we decided to embark on this process in this way is that the recognition that artificial intelligence technology is still evolving. The understanding of its potential is still in this dynamic stage. So it was seen as not yet possible to go beyond developing these voluntary voluntary ethical principles, but also recognizing that ethical norms can act as a framework in contexts where hard law is maybe not yet possible or currently not suitable in that time frame. So this is just to kind of give context to the level that the UNESCO normative instrument is operating at. So it's extremely important that we have buy-in from national stakeholders to explain the benefit of voluntarily adhering to these principles. And this sort of elaboration, like the way our report does, is really important to this work.
One question from this room. Sometimes in classes, I always have questions. One of my students here also. Maybe Lutfi, you have something to ask. Yes, please, I know that. Please, Lutfi.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ma'am Rona. Just one question, out of curiosity. The comparative study that Ibu Murti have mentioned in her talk, it seemed to me, by reading the report, that the 6 technical principles, technical guidelines, is contextualized based on the situation in Indonesia, and it's derived from the values of Pancasila. And as Bu Murti have mentioned in the results of the comparative study, some countries in Southeast Asia does not maybe believe or does not implement the same types of values, same principles and guidelines in their ethics on AI. And for me, I'd like to just maybe ask for some, what would you call it, predictions maybe. I mean, in the sense that would it be problematic if some countries do not believe in the same type of principles and guidelines? For example, if Singapore does not implement safety and robustness as their guidelines, as one principle in ethics of AI, would that be problematic? Or should globally every nation and states believe in the same principles to standardize this AI-based technology? Thank you.
Fik will answer that questions directly, please.
I think there are 2 points that we can deliver about the report. And the first point is about the spirit of the project, and as I understand about the spirit of this project is to contextualize UNESCO's recommendation about ethics of AI into Indonesian context. So that's why we have to find or look for a philosophical basis that we have, and I think that's Pancasila. That's the first point, and the second point is about. I think some technical guidelines we mention here is not unique and is not available in other countries. UNESCO's recommendation also mentioned them, and what we do is just find a philosophical basis with a view, with a local view or national view we have. So I think maybe the technical guidelines can be implemented or adopted by other countries, and what we do is provide a philosophical basis for the technical guidelines. And even though other countries, people from other countries doesn't know what is Pancasila and doesn't know what the principle, and I think it can be related about the technical guideline, like privacy, security, what else? Fairness, and so on.
Does need to be a common agreement among the international community on values and principles as it pertains to AI, and I think that's where the UNESCO recommendation aims to sit. It's something that 193 countries in the world can agree are important values when it comes to implementing and deploying AI. That being said, one of the things that we identified in this discourse is that when it comes to the field of ethical AI or AI research, the criticism is that it's very much dominated by North American scholarship or European or Western European thought, because the research and the work in those contexts are quite advanced in the global context. So there was this feeling that when you're talking about AI, you're talking about Western European values or North American values, and this is something that we wanted to counter, that we can look at AI ethics in line with what are existing national values and identify in those national values or in a national state philosophy the parallels with the ethical AI recommendations. And if I can kind of like look back in history at the role of the UN in developing such normative instruments, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was developed, one of the criticisms was that it only looks at a Western centric look at human rights. But there are certain, Asian perspectives of human rights, which is why there was the ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights as a counter argument or to add to that universal declaration. So with this sort of historical look in mind, we wanted to kind of look forward in the conversation on AI ethics and make sure that when we're thinking about AI ethics research and AI policy work, we're grounding it in national context. So this is the background to what we wanted to achieve with our report.
Okay, Maida.
Thank you. That's a very interesting discussion. But just to bring, saya pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya, biar lebih enak. Dan menambahkan apa yang disampaikan oleh UNRAL, sebenarnya di strategi nasional untuk AI sendiri yang dibuat oleh Indonesia itu juga mengacu pada AI ethics atau etika kecerdasan artifisial yang juga berbasis dengan Pancasila. Tapi mungkin masih terlalu superficial ya, masih hanya on the surface aja gitu. And melalui studi ini kami mencoba untuk biar lebih bisa go a bit deep dive into what is it, the context of AI ethics really reflecting to Pancasila. Dan akhirnya kita bisa menemukan ada benang merahnya juga nih ternyata dengan rekomendasi yang sebenarnya sudah disiapkan oleh UNESCO tadi. In the macro level of the recommendations, of course we have UNESCO, but then kayaknya terlalu jauh because it's again different countries, different nationalities. It's international instrument. So we're trying to bring it locally that fits really into the Indonesian context. What is it that really reflect us? And it's a timely time to be discussing about AI ethics because AI is becoming very predominant in our daily lives. We don't really realize about that. It's really been in our daily lives. So it's really important to engage in the discussions and seeing it from the ethical perspective as well. Thank you.
Do you have something to add, or is it clear enough? Maybe we can talk further after these sessions. Yes. Okay. So I think we don't have any more times to discuss, but I'm pretty sure that you guys here would like to talk more about this AI ethics. Bu Murti always be there here in the faculty, and I think our team, our team, is it right? Yes, the team. The team from the UNESCO office also will be available for any discussions and questions. So I think this is the end of our today's sessions. It's actually, there will be a youth philosophy webinar, I think, in, what, jam berapa? Oke, jam 2 siang nanti ada youth philosophy webinar. I think you guys can join as well.
Linknya nanti mohon diteruskan.
Oh ya, nanti ada linknya ya, nanti boleh kita teruskan buat teman-teman, and it is really interesting discussions. Jadi nanti buka aja biasanya UNESCO itu selalu update untuk di medsosnya, sangat up to date. Jadi kalau teman-teman mau tertarik isu-isu macam-macam ya, nggak cuma AI, ethics, but a lot of issues, climate change, and many other things. You can just check it out through their Instagram at UNESCO Jakarta. Aku endorse nih.
Izin biar konteksnya lebih dapat mungkin bagi teman-teman di sini. Jadi nanti kami akan bekerja sama dengan kita muda kreatif program yang menaungi beberapa seniman, entrepreneurs dan lain-lain untuk berdiskusi tentang disrupsi yang ada karena AI di dunia kreatif. Banyak sekali, mungkin kemarin yang sempat heboh ada ChatGPT dan lain-lain. Yeah. Kita coba pengen masuk ke ranah sana bahwa sebenarnya kreatif agents itu apakah hanya manusia atau bisa juga automated system seperti AI gitu. Mohon bergabung bagi yang lowong, ada di UNESCO Jakarta Instagram untuk linknya atau juga di Kita Muda Kreatif Instagram. Dan jangan lupa di follow ya. Terima kasih.
Ya, jangan lupa follow. And please scan the barcode here to share your thoughts. Jadi ini ada small surveys. Teman-teman kita minta untuk scan ya. Terus nanti isi. Silakan boleh pegang HP, nggak masalah, ini di ruangan yang boleh pegang HP. Sometimes in the class they are forbidden to use the handphones. So please. Mungkin bisa dibantu scan barcode-nya, ya foto kita di sini juga boleh. Nah ini barcode-nya, nanti teman-teman bisa share your thoughts on this event. So I think while filling on these surveys, this event will be ended by the launching itself for the report, the research report on this AI ethics and Pancasila. Please, Bu Murti and also Undral, I think you can send in the stage because we are going to.
Thank you to all our honored speakers and to Ms. Rona. We are now at the end of our gathering, but before we formally close this event, I think we will have a photo session together. So not just the speakers, not just the guests, but I think all of us. Bagi teman-teman yang sedang duduk, Bapak Ibu juga bisa tolong maju ke depan untuk sesi foto bersama.